In this video, we will see how to implement all these transitions just by using this code which uses a components. So I have installed Laravel Breeze, which installs TailwindCss and AlpineJS for me, which is what we need to make this transition component. So I'm going to create the component using PHP artisan make component, and I'm going to call it transition. This will create two files for me, the view file and the component file. Let's first use this component. I'm just going to uncomment it, and I will include this component using X transition. So let's reload our browser, and this component is running well. So let us proceed further. So I'm going to include some content over here, and over here I'm going to use the slot variable. So that works fine. So let us initiate this div using the AlpineJS. I'm going to have x data, where we'll have the show variable set to false, and I'm only going to show this div when the show flag is true. And I'm going to use this x-init directive, which would return a callback, where I would use this set timeout method to show the div with a delay of 1 second. Let's test this in browser, and now we see that this div is appearing after a delay of 1 second. So let us include a transition for this component. Well, AlpineJS provides this directive for transition that we are going to use. I'm going to copy it and paste over here. Well, if you are not aware about how transition works, we only need to change these 4 classes with the keyword scale. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these 4 classes. So I want to appear from right, so I'm going to give this a class of translate x 1 by 2. The final class is going to be translate x 0, and these end class are basically inverse of what we define for the enter. So let us test this out, and there we go. If you noticed, it is appearing from left. If we want, we can further increase the duration to 500, and there we go. So right now all the transition is from left. What we want to do is we want to make it dynamic, so we are going to handle that through using this component file. So within the constructor, I'm going to accept two properties, transition and a delay property, which would have a default of 1000, which is equal to 1 second. And I'm going to quickly assign these values. And I'm going to define another couple of properties, start class and end class. And I'm going to define a method set transition, which I'm going to call over here. This would validate the transition. So if the transition is empty, we are just going to return. And here I'm going to define another protected variable. Let's call it transitions. And this would be an array which would contain all the transitions that we support. So for each transition, it is going to return 2 classes. So for the left, we saw that we had the classes translate x 1 by 2 and translate x 0. So these are the two classes that it is going to return. So I would define this array for the other transition that we support. And now we are going to use this transition variable to set the start and the end class over here. And if there is a wrong value that we do not support, I'm just going to set the transition to empty. So let us use this one. First thing we can do is we can wrap this up in a if block. And then I would change this block to use variables start class and end class. And I would also change this to use the delay flag. Before we test this out, let us add a few more instances of this component in our dashboard.play.php. I will pass the transition flag to each instance that we have defined over here with all the transitions that we support, and I'm also going to pass the delay flag to all of them. I will separate each component using the HR tag, and I will use attribute merge to provide default classes to each component. Alright, let's test this out. Currently all the components have a delay of 2000. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the delay with a progressive step of 1000. So the first div will have a delay of 1000. The next div will appear 1 second after each other. So let us test this out. And there we go. Each div is having different transition and disappearing one after another. So with this simple transition component, we have been able to use all these transition, and we have been able to hide all the complex code within this component, and now we are free to use this component anywhere in our Laravel project. Hope you have enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.